I'm Marva Barnett again. I'm the founding director of the Teaching Research Center, and it is my delight to introduce the next panelists. I did want to say first, though, you'll see with this group of presenters that innovation doesn't stop with instructional technology, that you can be really innovative face-to-face, residentially, with your students without any technology at all except the microphones we need to be recorded. So I'd first like to introduce Mark White from the McIntire School of Commerce, who will show you about the power of stories in engaging students. Mark.
So, what I want to talk to you about is the power of stories. And to help motivate this session, I've got a story, The Day It Rained Cats. And what I've done is I've passed out 7 small passages, and it would be wonderful if those of you to whom I have given the passages, they are ordered, okay, from number 1 to 7, if you would stand up in order and read those out for us. And we have mics standing by to capture you.
The story you are about to hear is true. In fact, it falls into the category of stories you know must be true, because if you saw it in a movie, you would never believe it. But I feel I must issue a warning here. If you are one of those who like to surf with your cat on your lap, this story has been rated for mature cats only. Exercise extreme caution. And yes, some animals were harmed in the making of this story.
Remember the 1950s? The era when the world was all right, because women were baking cookies and vacuuming in pearls. The era when we were safe from communism because Senator McCarthy was on the alert. Back when the world was black and white. Into this setting, I introduce my little tale of action and bathos, despair and death, poverty and illness, and flying cats. The setting is Borneo. Imagine yourself in Borneo.
Borneo, a small island nation, rich with wildlife, jungles, a wonderful idyllic spot to live. A small island nation plagued with the terrible scourge of malaria. Enter the United Nations World Health Organization, a hardworking, caring, dedicated group of bureaucrats who are determined to save the world. A noble goal indeed, and now they were going to save Borneo. Malaria, as we all know, is caused by a little protozoan called Plasmodium. It is carried by the Anopheles mosquito, which has a distribution nearly worldwide. Plasmodium requires a vector to transmit it into the bloodstream of a warm-blooded animal, where it can complete its life cycle, often making its final host very ill in the process, and ultimately leading to the death of the host. Though not much of a problem in rich, developed nations, malaria wreaks havoc on the tropical nations, especially those where people live in poverty.
The World Health Organization had an easy solution to the problem of malaria, a popular chemical known as dichlorodiphenyl-trichloroethane, affectionately called DDT. This pesticide was being used worldwide, and as was widely touted for its safety and its effectiveness. So the World Health Organization, bolstered by wisdom from years of school and money from rich countries around the world, sprayed DDT all over Borneo. It worked. The mosquitoes died, and the people slept soundly, knowing their troubles were over. That is, they slept soundly until all their roofs fell in. You with me? All their roofs fell in. The cause of this perplexing development was soon determined. It seems that there is a caterpillar that eats thatch and is kept in control by a parasitic wasp that lays its eggs in the caterpillar. This keeps the caterpillar population under control, and everyone can have a thatched roof. This was easily enough fixed, the bureaucrats announced. Everyone was provided with a new tin roof, indigestible to caterpillars. The World Health Organization folks breathed a sigh of relief and went back to their desk jobs.
But my saga doesn't end there. Soon everyone was getting ill. Not malaria, no. That problem was solved by killing the mosquitoes. Instead, they were getting typhoid fever and the plague. The plague? Something is definitely amiss when the World Health Organization causes the spread of the plague. So now, back to Borneo. It seems that when the DDT was sprayed, the bugs died. This, of course, was expected, but it also set up a domino effect up the food chain. The DDT-coated bugs were eaten by the lizards. The lizards were eaten by the cats. Since DDT is designed to kill, it killed the cats. With the cats gone, the rat population experienced rapid exponential growth. And, as we all know, rats carry diseases, such as typhoid fever and the plague.
Now we come to the flying cats I promised. In order to rectify the worsening situation in Borneo, the UN gathered up cats throughout the world. Stray cats, of course, not your pet Fluffy. The cats were loaded into airplanes and given parachutes. When the airplanes went over Borneo, the cats were pushed out and parachuted down into Borneo, where they settled down to a new life as official rat control agents. Except, of course, those cats that landed in the middle of the ocean and drowned before they made it to Borneo. I'm not exactly sure where Peter was during all of this.
I tell you this story not just as an amusing anecdote from the deep, dark days of Leave It to Beaver and Father Knows Best. I do not tell you this story just to bring a smile to your face. You see, this is a story of human hubris run amok. This is a story of leaping before you look. And this is a story that best demonstrates ecological principles in action. Everything in our world is interconnected. As John Muir once said, when one tugs at a single thread in nature, he finds it attached to the rest of the world. We should always exercise the utmost caution when altering nature, though our impact may seem limited, for we cannot know when we pull out one little string what other things we might find it attached to.
So, I'm often invited to give guest lectures in large lecture halls just like this. And I have found that stories, particularly ones where I invite the participants to participate in the telling, to be extremely useful in motivating students to engage with the topic I'm talking about. The one that we've just talked about here is one that I use in my systems thinking class and in my systems thinking lectures. And I would follow up this story with a question something like, so what did you learn? What did you learn? And I'm in the commerce school, so I'm really used to waiting. Yes, sir. There's a chain reaction, and everything's connected to everything else. There's unintended consequences, and perhaps that thinking in systems in an interrelated fashion may be useful. Right? So that's right off the bat there, and it's an intriguing story. People remember the day it rained cats. What I want to argue is that actually we're hardwired to listen to stories. It's been said that the most entrancing words in the English language are once upon a time, as war einmal in German. And the most amazing words afterwards, and they lived happily ever after, right? So in his book, The Heart of the Enlightened, Anthony DeMello writes, he says, "It is a great mystery that though the human heart longs for truth, in which it alone finds liberation and delight, the first reaction of human beings to truth is one of hostility and fear. So the spiritual teachers of humanity, like Buddha and Jesus, they created a device to circumvent the opposition of their listeners, the story. They know that it is common to oppose a truth, but impossible to resist a story." Vyasa, the author of the Mahabharata, says that if you listen carefully to a story, you will never be the same again, because the story will worm its way into your heart, and it will break down barriers to the divine. So I am pretty sure that all of you use stories to illustrate particular points you're trying to make. It's one of the essence of good teaching, and I know that you're here for that reason. It's also part of being human. So the value of my contribution, perhaps, is just to remind you of the power of a really good story to worm its way into your heart, like this flying cat story. But I think I have just a few minutes more, and so I'll share with you an exercise that I often use to follow up this story right off the bat. I ask, so how could we have solved this problem, malaria? How could we have addressed this in a different way as opposed to parachuting cats in? Or put another way, how might WHO professionals have looked at things a little differently, and if they'd cast a wider net, right? And then before folks have a chance to respond, I say, hey, why don't we try something? Will you do this with me? raise your finger in the air. Take your right hand, please raise your finger in the air. We can all do this, okay? And I'd like you to slowly make circles. Can you do that in a clockwise direction, okay? Going clockwise, making circles. Now lower that finger down slowly, slowly. Keep bringing it down slowly. What direction is your finger moving? You sure? Check that finger. That one may be broken. No. Okay, so what happened? What happened? You can try it. It works all the time. You can try it again. It's not there. Yeah. Looking up or looking down, your perspective changed. Exactly. And so the course that I'm teaching is systems thinking, right? And so I'm trying to have folks look at something in a way that's different from the kind of the Descartesian analytical, let's break things into its parts. I'd rather have them look at the forest instead of the trees from a different perspective. And that's what I would argue systems thinking is very helpful with, because it provides a different lens from which to look at these different problems here. And so what I think that I'm able to show is that in a large lecture like this, the power of stories is useful in engaging folks there. And then if I can follow that up with something which, that's the message they're going to remember, that everything's connected to everything else, and that there's different ways of looking at problems. And systems thinking, for me, it provides a perspective, it provides a practice, so going beyond events to look at what the underlying causes are. And if you're in my class, it also provides a big set of tools, behavior over time graphs and causal loop diagrams and what have you. Thanks so much. That was my innovation.